So what is Rails Formation? Rails Formation is a toolkit for planning and bootstrapping Rails application at the same time. Let's see how does it compare to the standard approach. With the standard approach, you start with generating Rails skeleton, then you create your first model with attributes. You probably need then to update the migration to add missing constraints and indexes. After you run migration, you add model validation and then focus on defining the data for test records that you will later use in seeds. With the Rails Formation, you define resources and columns on very simple UI, then you define validation for columns and download the special template in JSON format. With the special Ruby gem, you can then apply this formation to create a fully functional Rails skeleton. Let's see how the Rails Formation looks like in practice. So let's create our first application. Let's assume that we want to create a simple application that is going to show the users list. So let's start with creating our first template. Let's give it a proper name. Let's name it users list. We will start with the PostgreSQL database and the skeleton will be generated with the newest version of Rails. So let's continue by hitting the save button. We can now add a new resource. Let's name it users and let's specify that we want to create 3 test records when the skeleton will be generated. Now we can add a new column. Let's name it first name. Let's give it a type as a string and let's specify the value type as first name. The value type is a special type that is used to generate the test data, so the data that you are using in development is similar to the one you are going to use in the production environment. So let's continue and hit the save button. Let's also add the last name column. Let's also give it a string type and the value type will be last name. The last column will be email, the type will be also string and the value type will be email. Now we have our column generated. We can add a new validation. We all want to always have the first name in our application. The same for the last name. We also want to run this validation on create and update events, and we also want to have always the email in our application. We also add another validation to our email to ensure that the email is always unique. And right now we have all the columns defined and validation for them. So the next step is to pull the formation and generate the application based on it. Let's download our formation. And when it's done, we can switch to the console. Just make sure that the Rails Formation gem is installed. And when it's done, we can type the formation apply comment and add our template. So right now the gem will generate the Rails skeleton along with all the information we specified in the application. So right now it will create models. It will also supply migration with all the indexes and the constraints, but it also will create a test data that we can use straight away in our application when creating next logic. Okay, so we are here. We can check out if everything went okay. We can see that we have 3 users records with the real test data. Let's see how our model look like. So we have all the validation we specified for the first name, last name, and email. Let's see now how the migration is look like. We have our indexes and constraint applied, so we don't have to remember about it. We also have a meaningful test data that is very similar to the production one, and we also have a simple seeds defined which are executed with the skeleton generation, so we can begin the development of our application right now. Thank you very much.